We are, it's Father's Day 1991, and we are going to have a conversation with Muriel, Betty, and Howie. They are going to tell us about their life and times growing up in Chicago. They have so many fun stories, and we want to just remember them all.
We have competition with the TV, which isn't.
Yeah, turn the TV down, please, somebody.
Somebody turn the TV down real quiet, because we're going to talk, and I don't want interference.
Yeah, that's a really good idea. We should.
It's nice to have something as a background.
I want to watch the game.
Well, that's too bad.
Don't worry, we got to talk about important things, about the olden times.
The old days.
Where should we start?
Well, we'll talk about the immigrants.
First, my name is Betty Jane Goldstein Silver. My mother called me Brooklyn.
What was that again?
No, she really didn't. She called me you pretty doll. But that's my Jewish name, Brooklyn Jensen. And I was born in 1924.
My name
Thank
is
you.
Tana Russell, named after my grandma on my mother's side.
What was her name?
Her name was Ruth. What's up?
Anna
Anna Ruth.
Russell.
Roseanne.
And I'm named
And what was
after
the
her.
maiden name? Anna Ruth what? Roseanne.
Shusette. What's her last?
That wasn't her maiden name.
No, but
That
that was
was
her
her
marriage. Right.
And what did they call you, Muriel?
And I was born in 1927.
Oh, okay.
Mom.
Thank you, dear. Go hang it on the bathroom
The
door.
lady with the exceptional mold.
The lady with what?
The exceptional mold.
Oh,
You
okay.
know the mold?
The mole. Sounds good.
What did they call me? They called me Muriel. Mur.
Mur.
M-U-R.
Where did moo come from?
Huh?
Where did the word moo come from for Howie?
Howie had a boyfriend by the name of Howard Aberman.
Uh-huh.
And he couldn't say Howie. He called him Howie.
Cowie?
Howie.
They called
And
me
ended up
Moo.
into Moo.
Oh, that's where it
Well,
came
what's
from.
really funny, there's a disc jockey in Chicago who became very famous, and his name was Howard Miller. And everybody knew Howard Miller. Now one day, he said, well, we all know your nickname is Moo Moo. Now, isn't that funny?
Well, he had somebody who called him Cowie, too.
That is funny.
So there.
Must have been.
How
Now
about
tell her all the boyfriends I had.
I'm not going to talk about you. I'm talking about me.
Oh, yeah. We know, Betty and Muriel.
Laura, listen to me.
Father question.
We want to talk about history. History of the family. Isn't this what you're interested in?
Well, I'm interested in
We want
everything.
The stories, the funny stories that took place.
Why don't you ask some questions? And sister, why don't you ask questions too?
I want to know that everybody, the maiden names, as far back as we can go. So eventually, if we want to do a family tree,
We talked to Grandma Ruthie.
Impossible, I think. I think it's impossible.
well, did everybody? You guys all came from Russia or Prussia or where is the?
Come on,
What?
we came
You
from
want to know the descent?
Chicago,
Okay, I'll tell you the
Before
descent.
that.
I'll tell you the descent.
Illinois.
Our parents were born in Chicago. They're U.S. citizens. They're American born.
I certainly did.
The grandparents came from different countries.
Now, what year they came is important.
Seat at the table.
Our grandpa Goldstein on my father's side came to this country in about the year 1880. And my grandfather and my mother's side came here approximately the same time. Now, they came
But
from
all their
Europe,
children were
born
born
here. Now,
So they were young.
1880 is 110 years ago. So on my mother's side, my grandfather came from Austria-Hungary.
You're a little bit mistaken.
No, my grandmother did. On my
Your
mother's side.
grandfather came
From
from
Russia.
Russia. And he
On my
was an
mother's side.
orphan.
On my
And
mother's side,
Yes.
he was no orphan. The redhead, Grandpa Boris.
He was an orphan.
Oh, well,
And he worked,
Tyler? Come over
he
here.
worked for the guys in the little black in the Russian army. that's where he came by the name of Shuset, because Shuset is Chusset, it's pronounced Chusset. And a Chusset is a guy that works for, that does this kind of work for the soldiers in the army.
Listen, is a religious Jew.
Okay, now let's go on to some of your funny stories.
Well,
from
That story.
Well, you're talking about Grandpa. So the
Okay.
Grandpa on our father's side, his father, lived with my mother and father when he was an older man, when his second wife died.
Yeah, we're filming.
And I also lived with my mother and father, and I had 2 children at the time. And we were all playing poker on a Friday night. We used to play Friday night and have all my friends and relatives over. And one day he walked in while we were all sitting around the table, and he says, I was just mugged. And they said, oh, deal the cards. And play. And finally, one of Norman's relatives said, don't you think we should see what's wrong with Alex? That was his name.
Alex.
So we stopped the game and we went in the kitchen and we asked him. And he said someone held him up and took all his money and roughed him up a little bit. And then he walked 3 miles home. He was at the time in his late 70s. He was visiting his girlfriend. That's the story about.
Now, I'm
You
going to
wanna
tell you
know-
it's a
wait,
real
Lauren,
old
let me-
story.
Let me tell you this, Lauren. You want to know where they're from. On my mother's side, my grandpa came from Russia. Her mother came from Austria. On my father's side, both parents came from Lithuania. At that time, I think it was called Lithuania, Germany.
Germany?
Lithuania.
Well, Lithuania is a country by
This
itself.
country by
One of
itself
the
has
Baltic
changed
nations.
so many times. I know your father is very interested in
But
this.
we can't go back any further than that because the history of families, you know, there was, in Europe, among the Jewish people, they were persecuted for so many years, they had to keep moving. And to keep a history of a family, you have to be in one place for a while.
Yeah, but I think
And
we
when
ought
you
to
saw
tell
the movie
her.
Fiddler on the Roof, they
But
would,
that isn't what she
No,
wants
no,
to
no.
know.
You know what she
Tell
wants
Dr.
to know is we ought to tell her about our parents' siblings and their children.
Talk to your
well, I
So
thought,
that if she ever wants to look them up. Now, does she know about Florence Rittinger?
well,
and,
I'm going to go down the line right now.
and that's
and
it.
tell you
These
the
are
whole
people.
story.
These
Here we are.
cousins
Is this the
and
Here
funny
we are, Lauren. My mother.
Chloe, she wants to hear the funny story.
I will, but
No,
first
I
you gotta
wanna
know about
hear
the
You
history.
want to
everything.
look up a tree? You
Sure.
say you
I
want
wanna
to
know
look
about
up a tree.
when you guys
My
lived in the
mother's
apartment with the rats.
family had 11 children.
Wow.
4 of them died.
You can pick up your hat.
7 of them lived. There were 3 boys and 4 girls in my mother's family.
You
Her
want me to
oldest,
name them?
the oldest child was a boy. His name was Ralph. The next one was a girl.
The
Her
one
name
who-
was
there was one older than
Florence.
Ralph.
I said
Yes.
they died. The third one was
What
my
age?
mother. No, it was Bessie. Auntie Bessie who lived
She
here.
was younger than your mother.
Oh no, my third was my Bessie was older than mine.
What's not?
Oh, my mother was third. Auntie Bessie was fourth. Bertha, Auntie Bertha was fifth. Uncle Al was sixth, and Uncle Teddy was seventh. Now,
Tilly?
that was Auntie Florence.
Oh,
Her
those are
nickname
And
was
that,
Tilly.
Terry Francis
Now,
is
Uncle
my
Ralph,
daughter,
number
and she's
one,
married at man.
Married a German girl.
Howie.
They had 2 girls. Their name is Elaine and Jessie. Number 2,
And if you want to look them up,
Florence or Tilly married a German guy from Detroit. They had 2 children, one a boy named Billy, and the other a girl named Susan, and her last name was Rittinger. Number 3 was your mother, my mother, who married Harry, who was Jewish.
who was her first cousin.
Who was,
Oh, no, I mean,
First cousin.
no.
first, her first
Then-
cousin married
and my mother,
Oh,
had
okay.
the biggest,
Looks like a
they had the biggest family,
He looked
5
like one of his
children.
favorites.
Oldest was Muriel, Betty, your daddy, me, Chubby, who died at the age of 38, and Ben.
Then
Now,
they-
you,
now
dear.
the 4th one was Auntie
I wish Ben was
Bessie.
here.
Auntie Bessie had 2
Go
children.
brush your hair.
Bessie's last name was Bessie Green. She was married to Uncle Dave, and her 2 daughters are Helen and Doris.
Don't do
Joey.
that.
Now we have Auntie Bertha. She was the 5th one. She was a redhead. Now she had 3 children,
All redheads.
all redheads. Paulie, who died a couple of years ago, he was about 58 or something when he died. Harold Gelfman, well, their name is Gelfman, her last name. He lived out here in Palmdale. And they've got a daughter, Barbara, who lives in New York, who has 3 children. Now, Uncle Al, who moved to California here, he lived out here, and he married another Gentile woman, and she had 6 children when he married her. And he raised these 6 children from little... Letha was her name. And he raised, his name was Al Shusett. And then he died a few years ago out here, and he was about 62, 63 when he passed away. And we don't have any contact with him. We don't have contact with them. Uncle Teddy, the youngest one, had 1 son, Bobby Shusett.
Oh, yeah, he was here the other
Right,
time.
he was the youngest of the cousins. And that makes up the family tree on my mother's side. On my father's side, there were 6 boys in the family.
No girls.
No girls, just 6 boys. And of the 6 boys, 3 had children and 3 did not.
Oh, the Dodgers.
The oldest one was Uncle Bill. He married a Catholic woman, and she was Irish, and they raised their children as Catholics. He went to Catholic school. His name is Robert. And his, Goldstein. And his sister's name is Dorothy. And Uncle Mandel was the second one. He died a young man.
Marty's named after him.
Mandel lived in Cicero, Illinois, had a shoe store. My dad took that shoe store over when he died. By the way, when Uncle Mandel died, by the way, my dad went bankrupt there. So it didn't last. But the store wasn't too much. But Uncle Mandel had no children. And he was married to a Gentile woman. She was Polish. They lived in Cicero.
And when the war broke out, she said to him, "Did Pearl Harbor die?"
Anyhow, the third one was Uncle Frank. Uncle Frank had no children, and he married another. He married a woman who was ran a prostitute place.
Oh, my
And,
goodness. Who was this?
She stole me a new coat. She let me wear it for my prom.
Right.
Oh,
Anyhow, he divorced her and
She was a
married.
Morphodite.
He divorced her, and then he had married Celia Litt, who was his first cousin
And was his first love.
and first love. And she was raped by a Schwarzer when she
Oh,
was
you
young.
can't do that.
Anyhow.
No way.
Wait a minute. He married his first cousin?
Yeah, because it was his
Isn't that a
first.
little
No,
weird?
no, you don't know
there
what
was
you're
one.
talking
She
about.
married my
I will
mother's
explain
first
it
cousin.
to you.
My...
In my family,
Only in her family.
Then the
Wait. Let Muriel say what she needs to
in our family, 3 of my mother's cousins, my mother and 2 of her cousins married my
3
father
brothers.
and 2 of his brothers. In other words,
Oh, I
the,
see.
In other words, if you and Karen,
maternal, the
if
maternal,
you and Karen and if you got another cousin, all went out together and you met 3 brothers and you each married.
Right. Oh, okay.
But you
Or
can't.
the next one
But
was
wait a
Uncle.
minute, my uncle
Well,
married.
get away from your family. It's ours.
I don't
You
care.
don't count.
Okay, I want to hear this.
My uncle married his first cousin,
Oh.
and they
Get back
had
in our
brilliant, absolutely brilliant children.
But ours didn't marry any
All right,
relatives.
anyhow,
So you
we
never
were all
know
in
what
it.
could happen.
Huh?
They didn't marry any relatives.
No,
I know,
Lauren.
but I'm saying.
The 5th son, the 4th son was Uncle Meyer. And Uncle Meyer had 2 children.
And they had a lip.
And they live in Las Vegas. Those are the.
This is for posterity.
This
I
is-
know.
I'm going to show it to them
This is-
someday.
This is Burton and Irving. And now the 5th
Daddy
son
can show you
was
how
my
they-
dad, Harry. And he married my mom. And they had 5 children, of course, with the biggest family. And the last one was Uncle Sam. He was kind of a nitwit. And he
Uh-oh.
went into the army, and then he
Well, he didn't have any children.
didn't
they'll
have any
never-
children, and anyhow he
He
get one.
doesn't say things like
Well,
that.
but he was a
He
little
was
strange.
such a nice
He was nice. But
He used to hide in the closet.
Wasn't he a store detective?
he was a star
that's how he
detective.
died.
And he ran, my Uncle Sam ran
How
a
did
book.
he
But
die?
you ask
He ran a bookie
cousin,
place too.
cousin Irving, Uncle Sam,
He
kept
was.
stealing. He'd take Irving shopping. He said, "You like that book?"
He was a kleptomaniac.
Oh,
Come
wow.
home and he'd give Irving.
What about
all
Bertha?
everything.
Living quarters
Bert
on
was a
right now.
kleptomaniac too.
You
Anyhow,
have to
we
sit
got
right
some
next to the
strange-
TV.
Oh, wait a minute. They're watching the game.
Anyhow, that's the history of the family. Now we're going to tell you some stories. One of the good stories is when we were little, we were very poor. This is about the year 1930.
Don't go in front of the camera.
Okay, wait a minute.
Now,
19
when
what?
my grandfather and my mother's side died,
Oh, they
my
are?
Uncle Ralph and his wife and their two
It's,
daughters, Jessie
8
and
o'clock.
Elaine, moved into their house on Avers Avenue in Chicago. My mom and dad were very poor. My dad was out of work. This was during the Great Depression. We had 4 children then, and we moved into the same house with them. It was on Avers Avenue. So here we had 2 families in this little house. They had 2 children, we had 4. It means there were 6 and 4, 10
It's a
people.
2-flat building.
10
We lived
people
on
in
the
that
second
house.
floor. It wasn't living.
And it was terrible. And so
Did we
consequently,
lose the first floor too?
this is when Jessie beat up on Betty. She tied her to a bed, and she tied her up and beat her up, and Betty never forgot about it.
Who's Jesse?
Jessie was
Betty.
Al.
That's not true. Elaine tied me up and Jessie beat me up.
Oh, that was
Sort of like, I think of that when I think of how they
this
pushed
house we had.
Daniel in the closet and Jolie.
Yeah, but
hit him
anyhow,
when
Betty
he
never
came out.
forgot.
I
But
always
of course,
think of
you know,
Jessie and
in
Elaine.
those days, things weren't very clean and sanitary. We had a lot of lice, and cockroaches, and rats. And we used to have a big bulldog, I remember there. And I forgot
Who
the
had
name
a
of the
bulldog?
bulldog in that house.
Who had a
It would have a head like this on it, and used to drool from the side
You
of the
want
mouth.
the
It was
story?
Uncle Ralph's bulldog. And I forgot the
He
name.
doesn't let anybody else
Well, I'm
Want to
telling
hear
you
the
these
story?
stories.
No, it
The
was
dog-
not Ralph's
It
bulldog.
was Ralph's bulldog.
They had a bulldog, and he was a cab driver. And one day,
The
a
dog
strange
was with us.
bulldog jumped in the car, and we had 2 bulldogs in the house. One was Jipper, and that's the one that drooled and did not belong to them.
Well,
They
anyhow,
had a little
these
bulldog.
animals and people, there's all kinds of disease in the house, and everybody was sick, and we had lice. I had a fever, and one night I was sleeping, and Betty was, we were all in the same bed together, sleeping, 4 of us. And I got up, and I couldn't see where I was going. I wanted to go to the toilet, so I
Oh,
stood
that
up
was
in
in
bed.
another place. You're
And I-
making such
And
a...
Auntie Betty was lying there,
Excuse me,
and
I'll
I
be back after this
urinated
glass of
all
water.
over in her mouth.
Is it
And she says,
raining?
Mom, is it raining in the house? I said, no, she says, get off of this bed, my mother. What are you doing over here? And anyhow, that was the story of the old house.
Now let
That
Betty
was the
talk.
story of the golden showers.
Okay, Betty, you tell us the story that you remember.
Clarify everything Howie said.
And tell
How did you entertain yourselves in those days?
Entertaining.
Tell them I used to play,
What are you talking about?
down the steps. What did you call it?
Riverview.
Riverview. Now, we lived on the 3rd
I had
floor.
I had
Howie,
a
let her tell the
girlfriend,
story.
and she only had an older sister. She used to be fascinated. She'd be in my house all the time, so she could be with my family. She still is today my girlfriend. It is over 50 years.
What is her name?
Betty Speed.
Betty
And
Glick.
Her name was Betty Glick. And we're still girlfriends. And she used to come over, and we lived on the 3rd floor, and we'd take a carpet, and we'd put Howie and Chubby on the carpet, and we'd pull them down all the steps.
What
And
about
that was a real. Then we put 2 chairs together.
Pot of
and
water
a
underneath.
pot of water underneath.
And a rug on top of the chair. And then they would pull the chairs apart and fall into the water.
And that was a shoot to shoot. And then,
Tell them about
of course, I used to
Betty, tell them
initiate-
about Bush.
I used to only pick on Howie, you see, because he's next in line to me. I didn't do anything to Chuck
But he was handsome.
because he was good looking. And we always had the same sense of humor, but he was always mean. So I'd get him down on the floor, and I'd sit on him, and I had long braids, and I'd hold him down. He probably
Torture me.
could have moved.
Tickle.
But he loved it, you know, and I'd put the braids in front of his head, and that was his torture, and I'd say, what goes up when the rain comes down?
An umbrella.
Say, an umbrella.
An umbrella. Tell about the time.
And this is how we played. And I only played with my brothers.
But tell
But
about
my
the time.
sister
Tell about the time.
had-
Wait, let
you
Betty
went to-
finish what she
Hey,
said.
yeah, what?
You went to the washroom to take a bath.
Oh, well.
And we had in the washroom, listen to this.
We had a
Chub-
hamper.
We had a hamper. So, Chubby and I got together, and Betty was about 13.
Uh-oh.
And I said, Chubby, I said, listen.
You did
You,
not.
Oh, yeah, he
I
gave
says,
the idea.
He
Chubby,
didn't do
I
it?
said, you get inside the hamper. I says, Betty's going to take a bath. And as soon as she's in the bathtub, open the hamper and say, surprise!
So I did. I got in front of the mirror and I was singing. Doo-doo. And all of a sudden came out, surprise! And I took him by the neck and I threw him against the door. And it was all, and he was waiting outside for the report. And he's still laughing today. But I got even with them. When we brought a worse person over to the house that had you and Chubby beat. His name was Norman. And
Oh.
he did all the damage.
Oh, yeah.
And then my brothers bothered me no more. Because
Ah.
he took
But
care of
Betty
them.
used to have all the boyfriends lined up in the hall.
Oh.
And,
She was a beauty, I know that.
yeah, well, she was, and then my mother used to scream at her. And they used to fight to try to get into the house after her. That was terrible, because that's the house we had the rats in.
Betty, you were like the Kelly Bundy of the neighborhood.
Tell the time about the butch
I don't remember the
I
story
had
of the
him, but
house
I
with
didn't
the
know
rats.
what to
Now,
do
which
with
was the
it.
house with the rats?
Well, I'll tell you the
had
rat
it, but
story.
I didn't
That
know
was
what
Buzz
to
Duke.
do.
Well,
Don't you
that's
remember
all
the rat
that
story?
was
But can I,
All right, I'm
can
gonna
I-
tell you a
can
real
I tell
story.
the fish story
All right,
first?
tell the fish
To
story.
this day, I look in the toilet first
All right.
before I make.
All right, we had
We had a bathroom and the tank, the toilet tank. Where's the plumber?
was on top
Was on top.
with a long
They sell
pole
that
And you had
today,
to
you
pull
buy
a
it that
chain.
way.
to get the water to go down
Right.
into the toilet.
And once I pulled the chain, and there a fish came out from the toilet, the toilet on the bottom.
What
Wow.
about the sink when you got water?
I got so
Was it a
scared.
big fish?
A fish.
Well, what about
I
the
got a
sink?
better story than
For
that.
me?
What about the sink
We
in that
lived
bathroom?
on the
You have
second
to hold it
floor
up 'cause it just falls
of
out.
this little
Let
apartment.
Muriel tell that one. Let Muriel tell that one.
What?
About the
rat.
sink. Wait,
Oh,
Well,
yeah.
the same bathroom, there was a sink that you had to hold up with your knees to look for.
No, that was a different bathroom.
Don't.
That was Eddie's bathroom.
This,
Well,
This
that's
is
what
the
Eddie's.
name of this show
I'm
is
talking
called
I'm
The Betty
talking
and
about
Howie.
those- We
That's
lived
be
at
quiet and let Muriel tell it.
No, I got nothing to say.
About the
You gotta-
sink. You didn't
I just
Oh,
said.
there's plenty of
Oh,
stories.
no. What
Tell
about-
about the time he wanted a piece of cake.
Nya,
Chubby.
nya, nya.
Oh, yeah,
Chubby
tell
and
that
Howard.
one, Muriel.
Bet-
You were
Muriel.
rolling out the cake.
As long as you live, you'll never understand. What's the stuff?
Go ahead.
Muriel, scoot over this way a little bit closer to Betty.
Tell
Because I
the
think I
story
keep
about when you
getting...
were making the cake.
The story is
Honey,
that
hold
I
the
didn't
pillow.
make a cake.
What?
The
Hold the pillow
story
so it
is
doesn't
that my
move.
mother was in the hospital, and I was in charge. Betty wasn't at home. She had already married Arnold, and I was in charge of
The boy.
Holly and Chubby and Bennett, who was a couple of years old, and my grandpa and my father. We all lived in this apartment. My mother was in the hospital. She was in the
Grandpa was in
hospital.
Grandpa never moved in until we had the
But-
house.
No, he moved with
He
us.
was with us
At
by
Buzz
Buzz Duke.
Duke.
Don't tell me.
But this took
Well,
place
I was-
at Eddie's.
This happened at Buzz Duke's on the
Was Buzz
first
Duke?
floor,
All right, all right.
where he had the
We were on the
thing with the
second-
rat. Don't tell me.
Oh, the rat story. I gotta tell
This
that.
was by
Well,
Buzz
let
Duke.
Aunt Muriel tell the story, then you tell the rest.
Go ahead,
And
Muriel.
I had to quit my job, and I was taking care of Bennett. And I had these guys, and my father and my grandpa. So this one particular day, Chubby and Howie came home, and I had bought a chocolate cake. And they wanted to know what I was making dinner. I says, dinner will be ready soon. Well, we want cake now. I said, you can't have cake now. After dinner, you're going to have cake. Now, bear in mind, I had a big responsibility. And they nagged me and nagged me and nagged me to the point I got so aggravated. I says, you want your cake? You can have it now. And I smashed my fingers in the cake like you served us today, Lauren. And I picked it up and I flung it and I threw it at the window. And I said, there's your cake.
Uh-huh.
I smashed my hand.
That's
But
where we get our
this
temper
is why I did it. Because emotionally it was a big job that I had to handle.
Yeah, sure. How old were you?
I was 22. If Bennett was 2, I was 22. And it was a pretty big load to handle at the age of 22.
Now, I'm going to tell you a funny story.
You want to hear the sad stories or the funny stories?
I want to hear anything you guys want to talk about.
Well, you know, we lived in the second story. The landlord's name was Buzz Duke. And we had a porch.
It's in the same apartment.
Yeah, the same apartment building. My mother used to do her ironing on the back porch. And she used to open the screen through the bedroom that my brother Chubby and I slept in on a rollaway bed, so she could get electricity in the iron. So anyhow, she finished ironing that day, and she didn't pull the screen from the window down. Now, we had rats in that building. They used to come and eat some of the garbage on the porch. So in the middle of the night, Chubby and I are in bed sleeping, and I wake up with a start. I hear a noise in the room, like something jumping around. So I give my brother Chubby an elbow. Chubby! We were about 11, 12 years old. He's about a year, 16 months younger than me. So I says, wake up, there's something in the room. Shut up, brother Dad. Listen, all of a sudden I go, plung, 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 plung. There's a little piece of metal that hangs down from the rollaway bed, and the tail of the rat was plunging against it. I'm going under the covers, he says. There's a rat in the house. So we're talking about alley rats. They're this big. These are huge
These
things.
look like dogs.
And
Yeah.
all of a sudden I hear the thing jump out the dresser. So I says, we gotta get out of here. So we start yelling, Ma! Ma!
I used to see those rats
We
walk
both
down
run out of
the
the
avenue.
room and we jump into their bed, my mom and dad's bed. Ma said, what the hell are you doing jumping in the bed here? I'm like, we gotta get out. Ma, there's a rat in our room. Out of your room. I'll get it, she said. So she goes into the kitchen, which our bedroom was next to, and she gets a broom. No, she got a broom.
No, she didn't. She got the crutch.
What kind of crutch? That's what it was, a crutch.
Muriel was using
It's
the crutch.
important.
Right, a crutch. You had a bad leg or something.
That's another story.
That's another story. We'll tell you about that.
A sad
And she
story.
started.
Oh.
She said she's looking around, looking under the table and near the gas stove, and she's running around, and she's looking for the rat gun. She's bent over. And my dad, in the meantime, he got up to check for her. So he was gonna get the broom, you know. So while my mother was bent over, looking underneath, you know, for the rat, he comes up behind her and he runs the handle of the broom up her leg. And she let out a scream like you never heard.
Injection in the
Inject-
window.
and
Where I
all-
threw the cake.
Their
Started
neighbor
having-
opens up the window and she says, call the police. Harry is beating up his wife.
So whatever happened to the rat?
Oh, walked out the door.
Oh.
I chased it out.
We decided the house was
Chased
too
it out
noisy.
the door, and then the landlady came upstairs and gave her Hail Columbia.
That
Then
was
it
the
wasn't
story.
too-
Sounds like your dad was a
Too long
character.
After that, she wanted
Well,
me to
like
put
to have fun.
a light bulb in the fixture of the bathroom. And she said, I said, I can't reach the light. She said, well, wait. And she got one of these stools, you know, with the wooden stools with the looks like a milk stool, a little longer
Oh,
legs.
3 legs.
Four. No, this had
It had four?
This had 4 legs, and she put that on top of Bennett's high chair. And she says, "Now you stand
On top of
that
the high
stool.
chair? Oh.
You stand on that stool," she says, "and you'll be able to get the light thing in there." Well, the stool, believe it or not, the stool slipped from the high chair. I got the bulb in, and I fell right on my tuchus, right on the floor between the bathtub and the sink.
Mm.
And it's a lucky thing that I didn't crack my head open, let alone break my spine.
Yeah.
But it made such a thud that this landlord, Mr. Bastu, came running up the stairs
Screaming,
and
move.
screaming, "Move, move, I want you to move, you're breaking my house, you're tearing it apart." So my mother gave him what for to move.
She took the crutch.
She took the crutch and she called him every dirty name under the sun.
And ran out after
to
him.
get out of my apartment, and then she
Threw him down the stairs.
He went
But
downstairs.
tell about the time I was going to get married, and you were coming with me, and we were ready. We were going to leave. We were going to take a train.
You were going to elope?
No, I was going to get married in
She went
Texas.
to get married. She
Oh,
got married in
War.
Texas.
And
You left the
Bennett
suitcase.
was 2 years old, and we couldn't find Bennett. And we all had to get on the public transportation because we never owned a car.
Couldn't find
And
Bennett?
we couldn't find Bennett. He was gone.
They
He was 2
wandered like
years
little
old.
children wandered.
And nobody was afraid to leave their kids outside in those days. And all of a sudden, we found him after we were real late, and he says, "What's all a buddy looking for?" I still remember his words. "What's all a buddy looking for?" So we grabbed him and we got on the streetcar to go down to the Union Station for me to get on the train. My girlfriend, Anna Jean, was there with her boyfriend, waiting to wave goodbye. She was there 45 minutes, and we still didn't come. Finally, we run in the station. How many bags did we have?
We
had
left
bags.
one bag. We left one bag.
No,
We
we had
ran
like 3 bags each, Muriel and mine. And we couldn't check it because
Daddy
it was too late.
She was 18
And-
years old when she got married.
19.
19 years old.
And it was too late to check the bags because the train was pulling out. And my father says, "Don't worry, we'll ship it express. We won't, don't worry, don't take the bags, we'll ship it express." And my mother says, "What in the heck do you mean we'll ship it express?" And she pushed the guy aside and she carried 6 bags down those 100 flights of steps. 100 stairs.
With her heart, with her bad heart.
And she
Screaming,
ran,
Muriel,
"Hold the train!"
Oh,
Okay.
Betty, Muriel,
Come
Betty.
on. And she threw us on the train with the luggage, every piece of luggage.
Yeah, my mother was an incredible woman.
But you see, Betty
You
was
couldn't
going to
believe
get...
what she accomplished with her being as sick as she was, and she
Well,
had
she was
heart.
very strong.
Yeah.
I'm strong, too.
You are.
You have
You're very
weight.
strong,
I'm
Betty.
strong, can carry heavy things.
But
That
she-
doesn't mean, you're not sick.
Yeah.
She had a
had
terrible.
strength. If you couldn't open the pickle jar, you passed it to grandmother. And she opened the jar for you. This is how they do it now.
Now, what were you going to say?
Take a video of me,
I was
Mom.
going to say she was going to
No,
get
no,
married
not
to
now,
New
Joey.
Orleans while we were on this train. And we had some experiences going to New Orleans with the train switching, and we found ourselves in the single car with all the black people, and we didn't even know what it was all about. We were very unfamiliar with that. But
They still had
bear in
segregation.
mind, I was unattached, and there were a lot of handsome guys on the train. But see, my sweet sister, typical, said, "You go by the window." And she had to sit on the aisle so she could make time with all the guys. That's it.
And she says, "Okay."
Today you would have said, "You get in there. I'm sitting on the aisle."
No, no. Today I think I do that again because it's not worth it anymore.
Oh, okay.
I've been through too much. No argument is worth it.
You know where there's interesting people to meet? At the libraries, I've noticed. At the library, there's lots of interesting people
Lauren,
wandering
have
around.
you taken enough tape?
Most of them are
Well, we
I
know
don't
Chinese.
know
a lot
if she's
more.
getting
Why
anybody,
don't you
but
play
she's
this
getting-
back?
I'm
and
getting
see
all
how
of
much
you.
did?
Oh, no, we
No,
can take
I-
a lot more.
a
You
little-
want to have any history of my grandparents and how they lived here in this country, where they lived? You walk right in front of the camera.
Yeah, Jasmine.
Sorry.
Uh,
Oh, they had a wonderful life. I wish I was living in those days.
what?
That was wonderful days. They had so much
I wish I
fun.
could live on the days of women.
Well, people didn't have anything,
What?
Lauren.
I don't
We had-
care. It was such
we
a
lived,
pure, clean life.
and all that time we never had
You
an
don't like to
automobile.
talk to me?
My father never drove, and
Why are you telling them? Tell
entertained
me.
myself. I'm going to tell you a story right now. My mother,
You don't want her to talk
my
to
mother,
She said she wants to be part of the
my
film.
mother was very.
Well, Howie won't let
She
her be.
loved to have these contests she entered, and she entered Muriel and Betty in a contest in Riverview. Now, Muriel will tell you
And
about it.
all our friends.
And all our friends. I'll tell us about the contest and what happened and who won what. This is very interesting.
I'm on a bicycle.
Well, tell them what happened, what you were dressed as, what she did, and how we
Olive
got
oil.
there,
I was
how we
in
Don't
got
Elsie
lean on
there.
me.
Hooper.
It's hard for me to say.
And Marcia Nyberger was Colonel Hooper. And
Wait a
this is how
second,
we-
weren't you olive oil?
I never won as Olive Oil. I won as Sophie Hooper and Colonel Hooper.
You mean she
That
dressed
was
you
from
guys
the
up?
comic.
In Cicero.
How-
Sally Rand, a fan dancer, was one of the
Judges?
judges.
Well, where was this contest? Wasn't it at Riverview?
No, we went to Riverview. That's when Betty Spees won. That's when
That's
she
what you was
won.
dressed as
That's,
Prince Valiant.
we used to go. That Betty Spees was Prince Valiant, but we used to go.
My
I think
mother
we
dressed
went
them
about.
all up.
All of
three,
these
4
costumes, and she
Halloween
made these
costumes?
costumes herself.
She made them herself.
Like Prince Valiant had a big pot for the.
She had such an imagination.
Right.
She was
And
very talented.
we went to all these places on the streetcar. You know, all these kids, we traveled so many miles to get to these places. There was so
Everybody
much
went on a
effort
streetcar.
to do it, and yet we had so much fun. You're talking about, you don't have to have a lot of material things in this life to really enjoy yourself. I mean, there are so many things that we did that were fun. We used to go to the beach in Chicago. We'd go on the
And there was
streetcar.
another story once. We went to the beach and Betty disappeared. And we came home without her.
Uh-oh, Betty found somebody at the beach?
I still don't know that.
Oh,
story.
look at her.
What happened?
Who'd you
This
find
is
at the
very,
beach?
very unimportant.
Oh, it's unimportant.
Okay.
It is very unimportant.
Well, anyhow, we used to all
Well, she
go
doesn't
the
want to talk
beach.
about that
We went to
story.
Oak Street Beach,
Boy,
which,
oh boy, you got the
North
classiest
Avenue
life
Beach.
around.
we always took the streetcar to get there in the summertime, and it was hot. And I'll tell you something, we never had air conditioning in our house. We lived in an apartment
Never
building.
had. There was
There
no
was
such
There was
thing.
no air conditioning. In the summertime, Lauren, it was so stifling,
The people
so
would go
hot.
sleep on their back
You
porches.
couldn't sleep. The air was so humid and heavy, you could hardly breathe. So you go outside and sleep in the park or on the
What's
side.
another name for the punks?
Well, the mosquitoes. We used to have those dive bomber mosquitoes.
Would you hold on to that pillow so
They
it doesn't
were
move?
so
Hold on to what? The
huge
pillow. Right.
They were
'Cause
so
I'm like
big.
leaning on that. It's moving.
that they'd suck half the blood out of you and leave you with big welts all over your body. And we had no protection except these little punks that you used to,
Oh.
you know, you light for 4th of July. And that's about the only, you couldn't stay up all night with them. But, you know, this was very bad. So where do you think everybody would go in the summertime to really relax and have a good time? There was only one place to go.
To a
They would
lake?
all stand in front of the theaters. They were the only ones that had refrigeration, air conditioning, and you feel the cold air coming out of the theaters. And you cool
Well, they
off.
used to have fans. I remember
No, the
that.
Marlboro. I remember had that beautiful air. My mom would stand there with go see Dad at the, working at Cutler's down the street. On Madison Avenue, he had the store right there, and we walked by the Marlboro Theater, and we'd say, "Oh, it's so nice." You'd stand in front of the air conditioner in the summer.
Well, it wasn't air conditioning. It was some kind
It
of
was called refrigeration,
some kind of
but
thing.
it was so hot and stifling there sometimes.
Tucker, you
We
found a way to
moved-
go in and out.
When we moved to California, it was like living in paradise. Believe me. The winter times, we only talk about because the cold was so terrible there in Chicago. You go to school, we were so poor. I remember going to school, walking to school, I had holes in my shoes. We put some cardboard and Mom put it inside because it
You'd
was
walk,
soaking through.
soles would come off, you'd
Your
flap like this.
Right.
To keep from tripping,
Right.
you have to flap your feet.
And you froze, your feet froze. It was so cold you couldn't, it was just incredible. And we,
But it's not cold
and
anymore.
then, you know, we had some very unfortunate things happen there. Betty got polio and we lived on Springfield Avenue. We used to live next door. We lived on Springfield Avenue, a 3-flat apartment building, next to the elevator track. You know,
Elevated.
Elevated was where the trains used to come by. They were local. And they'd come downtown on these elevated structures. And our apartment was right next door to it. And the whole thing was blah, 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 blah. You'd hear that the trains going by all the time. And after a while, we got accustomed to living there
Can we
because...
tell you another story about my mother? Your great-grandmother? Your great-grandmother.
My great-grandmother?
Your grandmother.
Jasmine's great-grandmother.
She always had to, she never really worked, but as her kids were getting older, this is before Bennett was born. So she decided to take a job at Brock's Candy. You know Brock's Candy? And she went to work, and Muriel was in charge of the family. She had to take care of everything at home because Mother went to work. And Mother worked one day.
One day.
We lived on the third floor. And when she came home, we all ran to the door, Mother's home, Mother's home. She walked up the 3 flights of stairs. She went in her bed and she lay down like this. Mother, how was it? Okay, can you talk? Here's candy for you, candy for you. And she pulled candy out from every part of her body. She had taken home all this candy. And then she went and she got herself together, and the next day she decided not to go to work. And she went and took Muriel and me downtown, and she bought Muriel a green satin blouse and me a red satin blouse with the money she made, and she never went back to work again.
One day.
Is that right?
The blouse was blue. Blue for you and red for you. You had a gypsy blouse with long sleeves, and I had a blue blouse.
Okay.
And she took me with her when she bought it.
Right, and left you home with
I love
the
the
kids.
kids.
Right.
Anyhow,
Lucky
at this
Muriel.
time, Auntie Betty got polio when we lived there. She was about 13 years old.
Yeah, I was sitting out.
And we were living there on this place. And you know, at that time, they were so strict what they
Well,
did.
there was an epidemic.
There was an epidemic then, and a lot of people died from it. And she had the type of polio that's called bulbar. It gets you in the throat.
You either live or you
She
die.
died. And anyhow, she was very fortunate. The guy that came to the house, this doctor, seemed to do her some, I don't know the history, but I know
Oh, I think
helped
Terry's
to-
blowing his nose.
to open up her throat,
hear that?
which was being paralyzed, and she couldn't breathe.
Who's the film on? Is it big?
It's on all of you.
Oh, I thought
It was.
it's big.
No, I'm looking
Anyhow.
at her, but the film's on you.
He
She's holding it.
saved her life at that time, and
Came to
we
the
were
house and gave her
quarantined
spinal tap. Did
for
he,
almost 2 months. They put signs on both our front and back door, and we weren't allowed to leave the house.
Poliomyelitis.
And there's a quarantine.
Well, there was an epidemic.
And so when Betty got
It's a
better,
well-known epidemic.
Betty got better, she came to California, to my Auntie Bessie place, to recover, you know,
For the winter months.
for the winter months. And this is the first time she came to California. And she
I
can
came
tell
on
you
a
stories
train.
of what happened out here. There, she came out on the train.
I could tell you there was nothing here.
Where Auntie Bessie
North
lived
Hollywood.
in North
104
Hollywood was nothing but orange groves,
Alameda.
Lauren. Orange groves.
Nothing, and he'd take me, we'd go for a ride down,
The year was approximately 1935 when this happened. No? Was it 35?
well, I was 14 years old,
You're born when?
1924.
Or just 1937 or 36. That's when this was.
What year were you born, Howie? 20?
27. So,
Why don't you put a stop so we can
27?
rest?
Okay.
Why do you
I'm
want-
gonna turn it. I'm
Fade
gonna
it up.
turn it off. I just want to know one thing.
Wait, mommy.
Don't walk
I
in
want to
front.
know.
I want to
Don't
see.
walk.
If we had to
Move,
do it
Jasmine.
all over again,
I
would
want
we
to
do?
know what brought, I know Muriel came to California to live. And then my dad ended up coming to California to live. When did you meet Uncle Chuck, Muriel, and what brought you to California?
I came to California to pursue a career.
1948, I think you came, didn't you?
1946.
46.
A career as,
A singer.
oh,
As an entertainer.
so you wanted to be a star.
I wanted to be a star. I was joined a group. I was in a singing group. Then my mother got sick and I went back and I still have a letter at home that was mailed to me by the director of this group.
And so where did you meet Chuck at?
I met my husband through a girl that I work with.
Oh,
Where were
She
you
was
working
his
at that
cousin.
time?
I worked for the Allied Record Company in Hollywood.
oh, you did.
Yeah, it was a record company that made all these records that used to go, now that they have the discs and the tapes and the videos.
Mhm.
These are the records that went overseas to the boys overseas.
Move,
Don't walk in
move.
front of the camera.
And that's where and all the stars used to come in there. I remember when Ruby Valley came in. Anyhow, one of the girls that worked with me had a cousin. He was my husband. And that's how I met him, through her.
Nicole?
So that was smart going to work at a record company when you wanted to be a singer.
Yeah, but it just was a job that I had, was an office job.
Oh.
See, he was an avocation.
Okay, and then, so you moved here, and then
I moved
Dad
here
got
in
brave and
1940.
moved
No,
here.
I came out here right after she got married. I was single.
Uh-huh.
And I visited
He came
Muriel.
out to visit me.
1948, I was single.
He visited me, yeah.
And I stayed here for about 6 months. I lived in a hotel with a friend of mine, Freddie.
Yeah, Chicago Hotel, I think Brooklyn Inn.
Freddie Loeb, Leventhal.
Yeah.
And I worked downtown at Swank Jewelers. I was a shipping clerk there, $30 a week. And it cost me $5 a week for my room.
Where did you just live in?
Freddie Leventhal, he had twin beds.
In a rooming house?
I lived in a
Freddie
hotel.
You and Freddie came to my apartment too.
We lived on that Soda Hotel at Brooklyn and Soda. And I stayed for about 6 months. The mom got sick. She had another surgery.
So you went back.
So I came back, went back on a bus, I remember. And that was an experience, me going back on that bus. I'll never forget
That's how I came out here on a bus, by the way.
I took a bus
6
back.
buses to get here.
And then I
Wow.
came back here again after that. I was single again, I think about another year later. And I worked out, and that's when I was a masseur. And I worked out here. No, Chubby wasn't here.
He came here single too, and I had my
Yeah.
first house.
Yeah, but I came here and then I
You
worked,
went to his
and I had an apartment in City Terrace. And I had an apartment out there, and then I worked at the Pershing Square building as a masseur and ambassador. And I stayed another 6 months or so. And then I went back again. And then 1950, I don't know, I started, I worked in different places in Chicago. And one thing led to another, and I met your mother at a dance. And we went to
Okay,
business,
just a minute.
and we went to Gary, Indiana. We had a business there for about a year and a half. We went bankrupt. We went to Montana, lived up there for about a year, and we didn't do too good up
Joel,
there.
you've got to move, honey.
After Montana, I was 28 years old. You were born up there. In the hospital, Gordon was, I think, 3.5 years old. You were 3 months. I came to California when I was 28 years old, lived with Auntie Muriel, slept on her couch, got a job as a masseur here, and then your mother came out 3 months later, or 2 months later, I don't know exactly. She was very sick when I was gone. She had a terrible kidney infection.
Whoa!
And don't stand in front of the camera.
Look at Jolie.
And we moved on Gambier Street, in that one-bedroom apartment down the street from Auntie Muriel's house.
I remember that.
And that's the way it started.
Okay. I think I'm going to fade out.
All right.
I'm going
Standing
to
in
move,
front of
Jolie. Move. I'm going to fade out.